Our panel this afternoon is from the Ministry of Finance. They are represented by Mr. Jerome Lee, Ms. Grace So, and Mr. Benjamin Lee. Teams are going to debate a particular policy that's proposed by the Ministry of Finance, who is represented in all our debates today by the first proposition team. Now, as you'll notice on the slide behind me, the other teams in this debate have also been given very specific roles and groups in society to represent as they support or attack the policy in question. Each speaker has 5 minutes in which to make their case and attack the case of the opposing team. At 30 seconds, and at 4 minutes and 30 seconds, the bell will ring once, indicating first at 30 seconds the beginning of the POI zone, and then at 4 minutes and 30 seconds, the end of the POI zone. Just a note, teams can only offer points of information to people on the opposing side of the room. So if you're in proposition, only they can POI you, and if you're on this side, only they can POI you. Okay? Finally, at 5 minutes and 30 seconds, and I'm terribly ruthless about this, the bell will ring continuously because really you should stop speaking at this point. Otherwise, we will call the security guards from next door and tell them to escort you back to your seat. Okay? That's enough of me speaking. Let's start with the debate. To start us out, I call the Proposition Team 1's first speaker, Abhirami of Unity Secondary School, to open the case for the proposition.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. As the Minister of Finance, let me first extend a warm welcome to all whom are gathered here today. Today, we will be implementing more financial incentives to encourage marriage and parenthood in Singapore. Let me first explain what is financial incentives. Financial incentives are rewards in the form of money such as grants, rebates, funds and subsidies. These incentives are allocated to help the middle and lower income families. This policy is imperative due to three main reasons. Firstly, status quo as it is calls for urgent attention. Singapore faces a decline in parenthood. Over the last 10 years, singlehood among men has increased from 30.9% to 34.7%. Singlehood among women has increased from 19.9% to 22.9%. The government is aware of how the global financial crisis has an adverse impact on the society. Yes, getting married and having children is a personal choice. However, this policy will help reduce the financial burden that is loaded on the parents by providing medical and manpower benefits to encourage marriage and parenthood. The second reason would be that an increase in birth rate would result in a future generation for Singapore. A generation of people that can sustain the economy and growth and also take care of the elder generation. As of now, the current ratio between a newborn and an elderly is 1:3. Therefore, for the prosperity and growth for Singapore, it is imperative to carry out incentives financially to boost marriage and thus parenthood. The final reason would be the immediate solution to the reason why families aren't having children, which would equal to monetary difficulties. Let me put it this way. The hiked-up cost of living may be considered an ailment. For that, the government has stepped in to provide a remedy that will slowly but...
Point, madam.
No, ma'am. For that, the government has stepped in to provide a remedy that will slowly but steadily heal families from it. Finance is the biggest issue in raising children. As I have mentioned, to tackle the
Point, madam.
cost of... Yes, ma'am.
Tell us how your policies are actually going to work when we tell you that trends of parenthood have actually dropped with the implementation of the baby bonus scheme in 2001, enhanced in 2004.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, there is no decrease in parenthood. In fact, the results are actually stagnant. Moving on. Finance is the biggest issue in raising children. As I've mentioned, to tackle the increased cost of living, the government is ready to step in to provide help by financial means. Let me now explain in depth how the policy will be carried out. This policy is mainly targeted towards low-income and middle-income families. Firstly, subsidies will be given for the medical problems faced by babies before birth. An example would be the risk of certain babies getting heart diseases or HIV. The government is willing to make an active participation in subsidizing the costs involved in healing the baby. For two working parents...
Point, madam.
No, ma'am. For two working parents in a family whose joint income is below $2,000, they can qualify for the lower income family benefits. They will enjoy free medical services such as free labour wards and free aftercare. As for the middle-income families whose joint income should not exceed more than $5,000, they will be receiving They will be receiving extensive subsidies in terms of hospital care. With this new policy, people are able to raise children without worrying about the medical costs. Secondly, career-minded women. More women are leaning towards singlehood. Most women find it difficult to continue their education if they were to get married and have a family. Let me now introduce you to the next SMU, the Singapore Mothers Union Program. This program will be carried out in already existing universities, where expectant women and mothers can further upgrade themselves in terms of taking up classes of interest or pursuing their future degrees. The government will set up a grant that will pay 35% of the semestral fees. This allows parents to educate and equip themselves after and during childbirth.
Point, ma'am.
No, ma'am. A childcare will also be specially set up so that their children can be taken care of while they are having their classes. The quality of professional childcare has been raised. Hence, parents would find it easier to juggle children, work, and education at the same time. This allows the parents to work without worrying about their children as well. Thirdly, 2 types of funds will be provided. The buffer fund, which aims at the government sourcing for individuals to replace those who go on maternity leave. Employers can inform the government 7 months in advance. Employers can inform the government 7 months in advance so as to find a suitable substitute to take over the job for a short while. This ensures that the resources of the companies are not drained and time isn't wasted. Employers need not fret on searching for substitutes or the loss of business. The next funding will be directed towards weddings. The government will provide a pool of money for organizations to conduct cheap but chic weddings and honeymoon services. Especially during this period of the economic downturn, this fund would prove to achieve higher marriage rates. Working together, we can be confident that Singapore will be able to ride out this crisis and emerge more competitive, better skilled and prepared to take full advantage of the markets for growth. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the fundamental misunderstanding from our government today is that we as employers are not human. Ultimately, we tell you that we as employers are more concerned than anybody about the economy. But the problem we face today is what is the best way to encourage marriage and parenthood? And secondly, what is the best time? As all of us know today we are facing an economic crisis. And we tell you what is more important than this is other programs such as retraining programs, as I'll be introducing to you later, which can better benefit this situation. So clearly, our stance today as employers is that we are agreeing with the status quo situation, but rather we do not agree with the idea of more financial incentives to supplement the existing system. So allow me to move on to a few points I would like to make for today. Firstly, on the idea of their policy. Now, clearly what they've mentioned today are clearly one-off payments. Now, our side on the government has mentioned things like subsidies, but clearly what they don't understand today is that we're targeting the lower income, the middle income of Singaporean society. And because we tell you that today the cost of raising a child, the very cost of raising a child, putting her through education, and settling down to start a family costs a lot. And such subsidies, for example, I give you the idea of the IVF treatment, which costs 7,000 per cycle, but the government is only subsidizing a meager 3,000 per cycle. How is this going to help the families? Because ultimately, we tell you such investments are long-term, and such one-off benefits do not serve to help the situation. Rather, we put forth to you other more effective alternatives, such as fundings which can go towards programs such as the SPUR program, in which the government has just implemented. The SPUR program, which is actually the skills program for upgrading and resilience, allows workers to get retrained, allows workers to increase their employability in the economic crisis today. And ultimately, this is what we stand for. And secondly, on the idea of increasing birth rates, which eventually leads to economic growth. Now, what we tell you today is that we're not against the status quo, but what we are against is more financial policies, in fact, to supplement the current situation. Now, why is this so? We have seen a concrete and visible trend. In fact, the TFR for 2003 actually dropped to a low of 1.26 after the introduction of newer policies. And we see that today, in 2008, even so, we still see 1.29 TFR, far below the replacement rate of 2.1. And the problem with this is that we have to recognize that money is not the root cause of the problem.
Point, ma'am.
Yes, madam.
Ma'am, what is the point of putting the funding into other aspects when actually we don't even have a future generation? We need to put it into trying to increase the birth rate first.
Madam, as I've stated already in the earlier part of my speech, we are all for marriage and parenthood. The problem today is that your method of achieving this is more financial incentives. As I'm proving now, this serves only to be ineffective. Now, allow me to introduce to you two major groups of society today. Firstly, the group of people who are actually attracted to such baby bonuses. They're attracted to such financial incentives, and the other group are unwilling to give birth. We tell you that the pragmatic side of people today have already been taken care by the status quo policies. They have already been attracted to baby bonuses, and we tell you that ultimately financial incentives can only go so far to help the situation anymore, and we tell you this will only be counterproductive. So then allow me to move on to my main point today, on the opportunity cost of giving up government funding for financial incentives. My second speaker, Nicolette, will then be talking about how this ultimately hurts the healthy business environment in Singapore. So now, moving on to my main point, for the opportunity cost of giving up government funding for financial incentives. Now, as I've proven to you earlier, societal trends have already shown how financial incentives fail. And more money pumped in by the ministry, by the government, in fact, will not serve to encourage marriage and parenthood, but will in fact further cause the government to lose out in terms of the opportunity cost. No, thank you, madam. In fact, we see that in the current climate today, money has been directly channeled to companies. Hence, we, in this manner, can benefit the nation more substantially. In the face of an economic recession today, we say that companies are all cutting costs simply because of the temporary dip in demand for goods and services. And one of the main ways that companies achieve this is retrenchment. Now, you see, in the previous year, there were 6,418 layoffs in the first 9 months. And in fact, it is estimated that next year, the figure could very well surpass the 30,000 during the Asian crisis. Now, ladies and gentlemen, knowing that Singaporeans today are extremely concerned with maintaining a stable life and remaining employed, this crisis has indeed substantially hurt their standard of living. And the opportunity cost of the government's policy is actually 1.6 billion on such financial incentives. And we tell you that rather than using it to alleviate the problem, money is actually spent in this area which no longer benefits the nation. We tell you that funds put into the hands of employers like us will actually help to achieve a multiplier effect, because we as employers have the ability to impact their jobs to help them remain employed. And ultimately, because we put forward to you today that pumping more incentives is clearly in the wrong direction, and because we've shown you how financial incentives no longer can work, we tell you to go with the side of employers, because employers do it best. Thank you.